The hospital lights flickered as the emergency doors banged open with a force that made everyone in the hallway jump. Coming through. Make space. Now. A nurse yelled, her voice cracking under pressure. A gurney shot through the corridor, wheels shrieking, metal trembling. On it lay a man in his early 40s, unconscious, his back soaked in sweat, his breathing ragged and uneven. His wife ran beside the stretcher, tears streaming down her face. Please, please save him. He just collapsed. He couldn't breathe. Inside Trauma Room 7, chaos detonated instantly. Heart rate unstable. BP crashing. Hurry. Get me 2 milligrams epinephrine. The lead surgeon, Dr. Rowan, stormed into the room, gloves snapping on like a soldier loading a weapon. What do we know? He barked. Patient collapsed at home. The nurse responded. Severe pain in his back, and... She hesitated, swallowing hard. And what? Dr. Rowan demanded. Sir, there's a growth. On his upper back. It looks wrong. They rolled the patient onto his stomach. Gasps filled the room. The mole wasn't just a mole in the mole. A swollen, raised mound had formed around it. Skin stretched tight, pulsing faintly as if something inside was moving. The surgeon froze for a moment. Even he had never seen something like this. What on earth? He whispered. The heart monitor suddenly spiked, then plunged. Beep. His flatlining. Doctor, we're losing him. Dr. Rowan grabbed the defibrillator paddles. Charged to 200. Clear. The man's body jolted violently. But the shocking part wasn't his flatline. It was what the nurses saw happening to that mole, something shifting underneath the skin with every electrical pulse. What was hiding inside his back? And was it the reason he was dying right now? No one knew. Not yet. But what the doctors were about to discover would leave the entire operating room frozen in fear. The room fell into a stunned silence as the man's body settled back onto the hospital bed after the jolt. But the silence didn't last. Doctor, look at his back. A nurse pointed, her voice trembling. What had once been a simple mole, something the man had probably ignored for years, was now an angry, distorted lump almost the size of a fist. The skin around it had darkened, stretched unnaturally thin, almost translucent in certain places. Under the surgical lights, it glimmered with an unsettling sheen. Dr. Rowan stepped closer, brows knitting together. Scalpel. His voice was low, steady, but the slight quiver in his hand betrayed something else. Fear. The nurse passed him the instrument, its steel blade reflecting the chaos of the room. Prep the area, he ordered. They cleaned the swelling, but the moment the cold antiseptic touched the skin, the entire growth twitched violently. The nurse gasped. Did it just move? Dr. Rowan didn't answer. He couldn't, because he had seen it too. This wasn't normal. This wasn't anything he'd seen in his 22-year surgical career. The surgical assistant stepped back involuntarily. What if it's alive? She whispered before immediately regretting saying it out loud. The heart monitor beeped erratically. Fast, slow, fast again, mirroring the panic rising inside the room. Everyone focus, Dr. Rowan said sharply. We don't make assumptions. We find answers. He leaned over the patient and gently pressed around the swollen mass. A slow, sickening squelch echoed through the room. The entire operating team froze. Inside the lump, something shifted. Not like fluid, not like infection, more like weight, movement, presence. Doctor, should we isolate the area? Yes, he replied immediately. Hazmat protocol. Full containment. The staff began scrambling, closing vents, sealing equipment, bringing in protective coverings. The tension thickened with every passing second. Everyone's eyes stayed glued to the swelling on the man's back, as if they expected it to break open on its own. The lead nurse swallowed hard. What could possibly be inside something that started as a mole? No one had an answer, and Dr. Rowan, the calm, confident surgeon, looked like he was about to face the one discovery he hoped he would never encounter in his career. Cliffhanger rising, because whatever was inside that mole, it wasn't just growing, it was waiting. The containment screens had barely been placed when the heart monitor let out a piercing, continuous tone. Flat line. The nurse's voice cracked. Dr. Rowan spun around. No, no, no. Start compressions. The room transformed into raw chaos. A nurse jumped onto the stool beside the bed and began chest compressions, her palm slamming against the man's sternum with desperate rhythm. Charging defibrillator, 200 joules. Clear. A violent shock rippled through the patient's body. Nothing. Again, 300. Clear. His body jerked harder this time, but the monitor remained a cold, unforgiving line. Doctor, we're losing him. Push 1 milligram epinephrine. Now. The syringe plunged into his arm. Silence. Everyone waited, hoped, prayed, and then, beep, 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 beep. The room exhaled as a rhythm returned, weak, uneven, but present. His back, whispered the nurse, wiping sweat from her brow. But the relief lasted only seconds, because as a man's body stabilized, the grotesque lump on his back began to swell again, slowly, rhythmically, pulsing in sync with his heartbeat, almost like it was alive, almost like it was feeding. Doctor, the mass is expanding, said the surgical assistant, voice trembling. Dr. Rowan stepped closer, watching the skin stretch so tight it looked ready to tear. This is escalating faster than we predicted. Prepare for emergency extraction. But the patient isn't stable enough. We don't have a choice. The pulse of the lump grew stronger, faster, each movement sending ripples across the man's back. Then, a sudden crack. Not bone, skin. A thin fissure split across the surface of the lump, oozing clear fluid that trickled down his back like glassy tears. The nurse stumbled backward. Oh God, it's opening. Dr. Rowan grabbed a pair of clamps. Everyone stay ready, and stay calm. But no one in that room felt calm, because the fissure widened, the swelling throbbed, and something inside shifted again, harder, closer to the surface, as if it was trying to get out. And right then, every person in that operating room shared the same silent thought. This wasn't a medical emergency anymore. It was something far more terrifying. Long before the monitors screamed, long before the mole twisted into something monstrous. He was just Samuel Dean, a quiet, hard-working man with a life built on love and sacrifice. The flashback opens on a small, warm living room. A fireplace crackles. A teenage girl sits curled up on the couch, her textbook scattered everywhere. Dad, can you help me with this math problem? She asks. Samuel smiles, tired but gentle, and sits beside her, rubbing the back of his neck in that unconscious way people do when something bothers them. But she doesn't notice. She's too busy trying to understand fractions. He lives for moments like this. In the kitchen, his wife, Helena, watches them with soft eyes. She knows how hard Sam works. 2 jobs, barely sleeps, rarely complains, except for that one night, 3 months ago. She remembers it vividly. Sam stepped out of the shower, a towel around his waist, frowning at the mirror as he turned to inspect a small, dark mole on his left shoulder blade. Looks bigger, Helena said, walking over. Maybe you should get it checked. It's fine, Sam replied quickly. Just a mole. I've had it since college. But she saw the hesitation in his eyes, saw the way he pressed it, winced, then tried to cover the reaction with a laugh. You're always worrying, he added softly, kissing her forehead. What he didn't say was the truth. They were already drowning in bills. His daughter's school fees, his father's medication, his work hours getting cut. A doctor visit didn't fit anywhere in that world. Weeks passed, then months. The mole grew, slow, silent, sinister, but Sam ignored it. He wore shirts while swimming, avoided mirrors, even avoided hugs sometimes, afraid someone would feel the swelling beneath his skin. Helena worried, but he reassured her with the same tired smile. I'm fine, he'd say. I just need rest. But the truth was simple. Sam wasn't fine. He was breaking, and the thing growing on his back was growing faster. The flashback fades, the warm colors dissolving into cold hospital light. Back in the present, the swelling throbbed again, angrier, stronger, and the nightmare he tried to avoid for months was finally catching up. Back in the present, As Samuel lay unconscious under blinding surgical lights, Dr. Rowan pulled off his gloves with a sharp snap. "We need the family. Now," he said. Within minutes, Helena rushed in, out of breath, eyes red from crying. Their daughter followed, clutching her mother's hand so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Doctor, what's happening to him?" Helena asked, voice trembling. Dr. Rowan inhaled slowly. Did he ever complain about pain? Tightness? Anything unusual around the mole? Helena swallowed hard. He hit it," she whispered. "For months. Maybe longer." Their daughter looked up, eyes filling with guilt. "Dad never wanted us to worry. He said it was nothing." Helena nodded. "He said he'd get it checked after payday. But payday never came." Dr. Rowan's jaw tightened. Whatever this is, it didn't grow overnight. He must have been in pain. He was, Helena confessed. Her voice cracked. She remembered the night she found him lying sideways on the sofa, sweat beading on his forehead, saying his back just felt tight. The mornings when she saw faint red marks on his shirts, like something inside him pressed against the fabric. The times he flinched when she hugged him. And every time she asked, he just smiled and changed the subject. Their daughter whispered, "Mom, he was scared." The words hung heavy in the air, because fear explains everything. Fear of diagnosis, fear of cost, fear of the truth. "Doctor," Helena said shakily, What did you find?" Dr. Rowan hesitated. "The mass isn't normal tissue," he said carefully. "It's structured. Lead. Something is inside." Helena's hand flew to her mouth. Their daughter burst into tears. Is it cancer?" "We don't know yet," Dr. Rowan replied. "But whatever it is, it's active, and it's growing fast." A sudden alarm blared from inside the operating room. Nurses rushed past. One shouted, "The swelling is expanding again." Dr. Rowan turned pale. "We have to operate immediately." Helena grabbed his arm. "Doctor, please, just tell me, what did you see in there?" He looked her in the eyes, voice low and grim. "I saw movement." The hallway fell silent, thick, suffocating silence, because whatever lived under Samuel's skin, it wasn't waiting anymore. It was trying to escape. The operating room felt colder than before. Lights dimmed slightly. The entire staff stood frozen, staring at the pulsating lump on Samuel's back as if it was some living creature. "Scalpel," Dr. Rowan said, voice steady but eyes full of dread. A nurse handed it over with trembling fingers. The moment the blade touched the swollen mound, the entire mass jerked violently, like something inside reacted to contact. Nurses gasped. The anesthesiologist stepped back. "Doctor, what was that?" Dr. Rowan forced himself not to hesitate. "We proceed. On my count. 1, 2, 3. Incision." He sliced through the top layer of skin. A suddenness escaped the opening. Not like air, not like fluid, more like pressure being released from something sealed tight for too long. Then the skin split wider on its own, almost peeling apart. And that's when they saw it. A dark, hardened shell, circular, ribbed, unnatural, embedded beneath Samuel's skin like an egg of some kind. "Oh my God!" whispered a nurse. The shell pulsed again. Something inside shifted. Dr. Rowan grabbed forceps, prying the torn skin wider. "Get the extraction tray now." The assistant rushed to his side. As Rowan pulled at the shell, it began to emerge, slowly, sickeningly, pushing itself upward with each pulse of Samuel's heart. The nurses stepped back, some covering their mouths. One whispered, Is that alive?" The shell cracked. A thin fracture split across its surface with a sharp, spine-chilling click. No, Rowan muttered. "Stay together. Contain it." The shell cracked again, wider this time, revealing thin, hair-like filaments inside, moving gently, as if searching. The assistant's voice shook. "Doctor, are those nerves?" Rowan stared in horror. "They're not his." The shell finally slid free from Samuel's back, landing in the tray with a heavy, wet thud. Everyone in the room jumped. It wasn't an infection. It wasn't a cyst. It wasn't a tumor. It was an encapsulated foreign organism, fused to Samuel's muscle tissue, grown over years, feeding slowly, silently, and as it lay in the tray, the cracked shell opened again, splitting into 3 jagged sections. The filaments inside shivered, then curled inward, like something dying. The heart monitor beeped wildly. Nurses leaned over Samuel, adjusting tubes and wiping sweat from their brows. "Doctor," one whispered shakily, staring at the tray. What was that?" Dr. Rowan didn't answer, because he didn't know. It wasn't anything from medical textbooks. It wasn't anything he'd ever seen in surgery. But one thing was clear. That thing had been growing inside Samuel for years. Feeding, hiding, waiting. And now that it was out, the nightmare was only beginning. Weeks before Samuel collapsed, he often remembered a small incident he had tried to bury deep in his memory. Years ago, while hiking alone in a remote forest, he had slipped on a mossy rock and scraped his back against jagged bark. The wound was minor, just a shallow cut, nothing he thought worthy of attention. "I'll clean it at home," he had muttered to himself, wincing as a bead of blood trickled down. But Samuel never really cleaned it. He was always busy, working overtime, paying bills, supporting his family. A small cut on his back was the last thing on his mind. Unknown to him, something microscopic had entered the wound, a parasite, tiny and almost invisible, finding a perfect host. It burrowed just beneath the surface, slowly embedding itself in his tissue. Over the years, it grew, feeding on nutrients, developing into the strange, shell-like structure now revealed in the operating room. Samuel had ignored it for decades, hiding the growing swelling beneath clothing. He had felt it occasionally, a mild discomfort, a weird twitch, but always brushed it off. His fear wasn't just of the pain. It was the cost of treatment, the fear of facing an unimaginable diagnosis, the fear of burdening his family. At home, Helena had noticed small changes. His posture, the way he flinched when leaning back, subtle shifts when he was resting. She begged him, pleaded with him to see a doctor. "I'm fine, Helena." "It's nothing," he'd say, forcing a smile. But the truth had been screaming under his skin the whole time. It wasn't just a mole. It was living. It was growing. And it was patient. Waiting. Now, years later, that tiny scrape had evolved into a near monster under his skin. What had begun as an almost insignificant wound had become a nightmare that threatened to take his life. As the surgical team stared in disbelief at the organism lying in the tray, Dr. Rowan couldn't help but shudder. This didn't happen overnight," he whispered. "This has been here for years. Feeding, hiding, waiting." The backstory revealed one terrifying truth. Samuel's own fear of seeking help had allowed something extraordinary and horrifying to grow silently inside him. And the question that now haunted everyone in the room lingered. Had it already done irreversible damage? News spread faster than anyone could anticipate. Within hours of the emergency surgery, whispers became headlines. "The mole that wasn't a mole. Patient survived bizarre surgery," read one online article. Another screamed, "Hospital horror. Doctors pull mysterious organ from patient's back." Helena and Samuel's daughter watched the news with growing anxiety. They hadn't wanted anyone to know. But now, everyone did. Reporters camped outside the hospital. Cameras flashed whenever the medical staff stepped outside. "Do you realize what could have happened?" one journalist asked, voice booming. "What was in that man's back? Was it negligence? Could it have been prevented?" The hospital administration went into damage control. Lawyers arrived. Ethics boards convened. Dr. Rowan found himself in meetings he hadn't expected. What exactly happened? His supervisor demanded. Could this have been caught earlier? Was there malpractice? Meanwhile, Samuel's story caught attention online. Social media exploded with speculation, horror, and memes. Some accused him of ignoring health warnings. Others blamed the hospital for delayed diagnosis. Even Helena was forced to confront the scrutiny. "People think I didn't care," she whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I begged him to see a doctor. I warned him. And now, everyone's pointing fingers." The hospital initiated an internal investigation, reviewing every detail of Samuel's history. Each chart, each nurse's note, every doctor's comment, scrutinized with intense suspicion. Dr. Rowan realized something frightening. It wasn't just the organism in Samuel's back. It was a social storm ready to tear lives apart. Media outlets questioned how a simple mole could evolve into a living organism. Public fear and fascination blended into hysteria. Lawyers knocked on the family's door. Insurance agents called. Comments online ranged from empathy to outrage. Helena held her daughter tightly. "They don't understand," she whispered. "It's not his fault. It's not mine. We did everything we could." Outside, the world debated, condemned, and speculated. Inside, Samuel's family realized something terrifying. Even if he survived the surgery, the judgment, scrutiny, and blame waiting in the real world might be just as dangerous as the organism that had nearly killed him. And as night fell, the family wondered, would they ever be saved from the chaos that had followed the silent horror growing on Samuel's back? Hours passed like eternities. The operating room, once a battlefield of panic and chaos, had quieted, save for the soft beeps of monitors and the exhausted sighs of the medical staff. Samuel lay on the bed, pale, weak, but alive. His breathing was steady. The grotesque organism that had terrorized the room was finally removed, contained in a sterile tray. Dr. Rowan stepped back, removing his gloves, his face still pale. "I can't believe it," he murmured. "This shouldn't have survived. None of us thought he would make it." Helena rushed forward, tears streaming freely. "Sam! Oh my God! You're alive!" she cried, wrapping her arms around him as best she could. Samuel's eyes fluttered open. For a moment, confusion crossed his face. Then recognition. Relief. I'm okay," he whispered. "More than okay," Dr. Rowan replied softly. "You survived something unbelievable. You're a miracle." Their daughter ran in, hugging him tightly. "I thought I'd lost you, Dad," she sobbed, holding on as if letting go might make him disappear. The nurses exchanged glances. Some laughed softly, some quietly wept. Every hand that had touched Samuel felt the weight of the impossible. Even the hospital staff, jaded by a decade of emergencies, couldn't hide the awe. "This one's going to stay in the books," muttered a young nurse. "Unreal," said another. Outside, the media frenzy continued, but inside the hospital room, the world had narrowed to a single, sacred moment. He had survived. Helena knelt beside him, gently taking his hand. "You've been through hell, and you're still here. Don't ever hide things from us again. Okay," she whispered. Samuel squeezed her hand weakly, a tired smile forming. "I won't," he promised. "I won't ever hide from the truth again." For the first time in years, the family breathed freely. The nightmare that had grown silently beneath his skin had been removed. Yet even in relief, a shadow lingered. The organism had been contained, yes, but its existence left lingering questions, doubts, and fear. And everyone in that room understood one undeniable truth. Survival had been a miracle. But the scars, physical, emotional, and psychological, would take a lifetime to heal. For now, they allowed themselves one small victory, one fleeting, precious moment of peace. But the world outside still watched, waiting. And in that quiet, fragile victory, a lingering shiver of fear remained. Days later, Samuel sat by the window of his hospital room, sunlight filtering softly across his face. The monitors were silent now, the chaos replaced by a quiet he hadn't felt in years. Helena brought him a cup of tea, her hand brushing his shoulder gently. Their daughter rested her head on his chest, finally able to breathe without fear. "I can't believe it's over," Samuel whispered. Helena shook her head, eyes glistening. "Not completely," she replied. "The pain may be gone, but the lesson, that will stay forever." He looked at the scar on his back, a permanent reminder of the silent threat he had ignored for so long. The mole he thought was harmless had nearly cost him his life. I should have told you sooner," he admitted, voice heavy with regret. "You should have gone to the doctor when it first appeared," Helena said softly. "We would have been there, together." A deep silence settled over the room, filled with understanding and love. The fear had passed, but the wisdom remained. Samuel realized then that the organism under his skin wasn't just a medical nightmare. It was a warning, a symbol of neglect, fear, and avoidance. One small decision had the power to change a lifetime. Dr. Rowan visited later, giving him a reassuring nod. You're lucky. Most patients don't make it after something like this. But you survived. You fought, silently but fiercely. Samuel squeezed his wife's hand, then his daughter's. From now on, no more hiding, no more silence. Life is too fragile to wait. And as the sunlight warmed the room, the story of Samuel's survival became more than a tale of medical horror. It became a lesson. Ignore warning signs, and the small things can grow into nightmares. Face your fears, trust those who love you, and never take your health for granted. The scar on his back would remain, a permanent memory of terror. But it was also a reminder the human spirit, when confronted with unimaginable danger, can endure, can survive, can triumph. The screen faded to black, and the words echo in the viewer's mind. Some dangers hide silently. Some battles are fought beneath the surface. Never ignore what your body and your loved ones are trying to tell you.